After propping up the stock, bond, and housing market for the last 15 years, it looks like the Federal Reserve, to quote an old Steely Dan song, does not want to do your dirty work no more. And it looks like they're telling everybody to wrap it up when it comes to the cheap money era on Wall Street. Federal Reserve, they were actually correct a couple years ago when they said inflation was transitory. I just wish they would have stuck with that idea. Question for the Federal Reserve. Is inflation and housing bad if everyone can afford it? And it's official. Welcome to the buyer's market of 2022 when it comes to real estate. Welcome back to This Week in Mortgage, everybody. My name is Sam Battaglia, your mortgage broker here at Guaranteed Rate in Beverly Hills, right on Cannon. I hope you had a great week. All right, I'm going to jump around a little bit today here, but quick question. What did the Federal Reserve think was going to happen when they dropped $5 trillion out of a helicopter and put mortgage rates on a 30-year fixed under 3%? Well, they knew what was going to happen. We were going to get inflation. And I think they were also right when they said the inflation was transitory. I wish they would have stuck there. Now, because of what's happened to interest rates, something I've talked about frequently is mortgage love, meaning people that have an existing mortgage at 3% or below, for example, on a 30-year fixed, are not going to sell that house. Well, I should say they're not going to be tripping over themselves to sell that house because of that mortgage they have to get a mortgage that's much higher today. What this may cause in the real estate market is stagnation. We will see. I got a question that I ask. Is inflation in housing is a bad thing if it is affordable? I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. Housing is the greatest source of most people's wealth, and their net worth is tied up in their house. If they can afford the mortgage, I don't think it's a terrible thing to have inflated prices because price is a function of access to money. So I think that the Federal Reserve should chill out, understand, well, they do understand this, but recognize that if people don't feel good about their housing, values and equity and whatnot, sentiment and confidence is also going to go by the wayside, and that's going to affect every consumer decision they make moving forward. And again, they were right about the inflation being transitory. I wish they had the courage to see it through. They knew that once all that money was put into the system and they put mortgage rates at less than 3% on a 30-year fix, for example, that was not going to last forever, but it looks like they got really scared at the beginning of the year and set out on this path to keep raising interest rates, which it's just been a slow drip that's been rather annoying throughout the course of the year, where I mentioned earlier in the year they should just go, if they really believe it's not transitory, go 300 basis points, I think in the March meeting I mentioned, and get it over with. They have not done that. This has just been a long, agonizing year. We're trying to guess what they're going to do. But they were right initially about inflation, and then they got scared. All right. What the Federal Reserve should do, actually, when it comes to housing, is stop looking at housing numbers inside the inflation numbers. Housing numbers, number one, they lag. They lag pretty tough for that matter. But like when they look at inflation minus food and energy, on a move-forward basis, they should probably look at inflation minus food, energy, and housing, because inflation and housing will now always exist and will never hit their target because of one thing and one thing alone: overall lack of inventory, because we are short supply because we haven't built a lot of houses in the last 12 years. So if the Federal Reserve wants to fight inflation, at this point, we know they can't do it through gas and food, and they're doing the wrong job of fighting it through real estate. I just wish they would take an actual look at the effects that this is having in real time, not looking backwards at some numbers. Another thing, the velocity of money. When you dump money, $5 trillion or so, into the economy and put mortgage rates, again, at less than 3% on a 30-year fix, for example, that instantly gives a boost to the economy. But when you start tightening rates like they've been doing all year, that is a trickle into the economy as it goes. They are going to see the effects of, they still haven't seen the effects probably of their first rate hike that they've done. Nonetheless, the effects that this upcoming rate hike is going to have on the economy. So the velocity of money, it goes in different speeds in different directions, and I think they're shortly going to figure that out. And I saw a pie chart this morning, very interesting. 32% of inflation is considered shelter, what we would call housing in general. Again, if 32% of the inflation that we're dealing with is in your shelter, and the Federal Reserve throughout the year now has basically come close to doubling mortgage interest rates, I would say inflation is well on its way down based on what we've been seeing lately. And that's another thing. You can't double interest rates within the course of 6 or 7 months and not expect it to absolutely choke out the housing market and the economy. If this happened over the course of 2 years, that's one thing. This happened over the course of 6 months. That's a whole other story. That is just running too quick, too fast in either direction, not healthy, and that in and of itself is not sustainable. And as we go, welcome to the buyer's market of late 2022. The recent rise in mortgage rates have certainly made the pendulum swing. If it's a 51-49 imbalance, it is definitely in the favor of the buyers as we sit here today. And again, I think when it comes to this inflation that I focused on this whole show, the Federal Reserve at this point is absolutely beating a dead horse, as they still haven't even seen the effects of their first rate hikes that they've done anywhere outside of the housing market. Okay, everybody, that is my show for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you have any mortgage-related questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Once again, thank you for watching, and have a terrific weekend.